Welcome to another edition of 12.5 Minutes. My name is Jared Kelly, and I am with my friend and co-host, Liz Whitehead.
Hi, Jared.
Great to see you, as always. I am excited about today because we have a great conversation about data, and you know how much I love data conversations. So let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about our guest.
Sure. Stephanie Francis and I met a while back. It was actually, we talked right before the pandemic. We were at an event together in March of 2020. And we were like, we will either be like, oh man, this pandemic thing was way overblown, or we'll be like, I cannot believe that we were at that event right now. And so we know how that turned out. And since then, I've been really interested in the way Stephanie approaches market research, both to provide value to her clients, but also to find really innovative ways of getting this information from consumers. And so I'm excited for you to meet her, and I'm excited to talk to her right now.
Stephanie.
Hi,
Hello,
Stephanie.
everybody. Good to see you both.
Great to see you as well. So, Stephanie Francis, founder and lead innovator of Hootology, please give us just a little bit of understanding of what does your firm do and exactly how would you describe it in terms of its value proposition?
Yeah, well, one of our few taglines is the 1950s called and they want their research back. So we talk about being a modernized market research agency, which means we believe strongly that the survey, a quantitative survey, and a focus group make no sense for 2024. They were grounded in really great innovative technologies in the 50s and 60s, but a lot of time has passed if you think about how we led our lives or how lives were led then versus now. How do we rethink that to make the information more relevant, more meaningful, and better to understand people of all types?
Awesome. And I love that you are doing this. What are some of the new ways? Like, what's a different way to get that information?
You know, I actually quit. I quit my I was teaching as an adjunct professor at NYU in a graduate level program, a global market research class for about 6 or 7 years. And my final 2 semesters, I got sick of myself. I became annoying to myself, and because I was spending all of my time helping my graduate students be prepared to doubt all of the information they would be receiving in their decision-making roles post career. And I was like, this isn't the best. This doesn't feel like me. It doesn't feel like what's possible. How do we create the next thing? How can we make this better? So I resigned from that role, and I was like, I have this amazing, innovative team at Hootology that's constantly rethinking how would we gather this information for today, and what if we spent our time creating that new platform. So super excited to say that in 2024 we've launched. It's a video gamified platform. So it looks like a video experience that all of us, I'm squarely Gen X, are used to experiencing life. So it's not just for Gen Z and the 90% of 92% of folks from that generation that are gamers and used to being an immersive, movie quality like video. But for the rest of us who that's how we engage. And it allows the use of generative AI to quantify qualitative information in real time. So what that means is we can start with 1,000 people versus 12, right, in a typical focus group, ask them how they feel about a certain topic without giving any parameters or guidelines. And then Gen AI synthesizes that information of those real people and then brings it back into the conversation so we can go deeper and then actually statistically project why people feel the way that they feel.
Oh, wow. So the data that you get, like, what's the impact of the data? Like, how does that change the data that you get for your
Yeah.
customers?
That's a great question, Liz, because it's like a radically new way to gather the information, but a very comforting and a way to show the information. So it ends up being a lot of quantitative charts, but it's quantitative charts of what people are telling us versus what we're giving options to people to choose from. So it's really what's on the hearts and minds, and it explains the why, in addition to being able to validate with the people who told us, did we get this right? Versus a lot of analysis that after the fact is like, hey, here's our summary. We don't know if the folks who we actually talked to would agree with this. It does that all in the conversation.
Wow.
You know what I think is fascinating about that is this obviously has application for all different types of industries, and clearly, your history is to serve a variety of industries, right? Now, I saw on your website not only CPG firms, tech firms, pharmaceutical, professional sports, which I'd love to get into a conversation about at a different time. Um, but tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about how you take that data that's kind of consumer based and but also look at it in terms of um, impact on communities or impact on employees. Like, is there a better understanding that we can garner from the data that you're collecting that's beyond just what consumers think?
Yeah, I'll tie that sports and corporate diversity together for you. And I actually worked for about a decade in sports business. And at that time, we were tasked with trying to quantify the impact of a very, very large sports sponsorship. So corporations would be spending, upwards tens, $20 million or more a year on a sports partnership. And historically, that was started because it was an interest of the CEO. And as times changed, there needed to be a way to say, as every other division within marketing of a large corporation was doing, is saying, we're spending this much. We're spending $15 million a year on this March Madness partnership. What's the impact on our brand? So I was fortunate to be part of the team and led the team that created that solution to be able to find a way to quantify that impact on the brand and on the bottom line for these sports partnerships. Flash forward to when Liz and I met and had that first cocktail and that second and third cocktail. And given her expertise and depth of history in the supplier diversity world, it came around in 2018, which was our first entry into this beautiful ecosystem that is supplier diversity. And because I'm a research nerd, instead of trying to kind of plow our way through the supplier diversity person to get to our typical end decision maker of innovation, research, or strategy, we would have conversations with these wonderful folks who are working so hard on behalf of their corporate brands to diversify the vendor base. And I would inevitably ask, how are you showing your impact? And we got the answers, which was like, oh, we're tracking our spend, we're tracking our awards, or we're tracking economic impact, which are all interesting and important, right? Those are relevant metrics. And I remember saying, I think Liz, you were there. I was like, no, no, no. How are you really showing your impact?
Right.
And I don't mean it that everything that corporations do should be about, as Stephanie, I don't believe that everything corporations should do should be about the brand and the bottom line. But I'm a realist, and that's what corporations are about. That's why that's their charter: shareholder value and stock price. And that's not going to change in my lifetime. And so I hit a certain point in my maturity that I accepted that. And sure, should corporations commit to diversity being done, quote unquote, right, because it's the right thing to do? Absolutely. However, that's not the main driver. So we created a way to show the impact on the brand and the bottom line to add to that conversation.
And that's evolving too. So what's the next evolution of that? One, given the environment that we're in, but also given the trajectory of this new system you have, this new innovative.
Yeah, it's a new day in all of our lives right now. That's the most neutral way I can put it. But when we first fielded the Corporate Diversity Index in 2019, really, I didn't know, Jared, Liz, that it was going to be, we were going to ever do it again, because to do it right, I had to be an ethical, honest researcher and be as neutral as possible in the design of what we did with Hootology. And even I was surprised at how powerful corporate diversity is on the consumer. And that's the consumer base across almost every demographic, right? Incredible impact, 3 times the impact on brand perception once a consumer perceives a brand as valuing diversity, and 4x on actual purchase of that brand's products and services across industry. And obviously we have the ability to go deep down on different industries and different consumer types. But on the macro level, it's pretty freaking powerful. And so what happened this year and at the end of last year, when tides started to shift and turn with the Fearless Fund lawsuit and the Hello Alice lawsuit and all of the other things that we all know about, we realized that this information that we had was part of the story that someone who was an expert in this field and the ones who are actually impacting change at a much higher level, farther upstream than we are, could use to put to better use, right? Than us, working to sell it through supplier diversity to individual brands, so they could tell their story internally. How do we find the best home for this? So we're in the process right now. We're talking to a few different folks who are much smarter than we are around corporate diversity and public strategies and private strategies to ensure it can get put to use in this really crucial moment.
I love that. I love that you have this thing that you created and you're like, you know what, this is bigger than me. This needs to live somewhere else.
Well, and I would add to that from a standpoint of, you're right in terms of corporate diversity. The indexing and analysis in terms of consumer response, I think, is important. I also believe that many consumers have no idea if a corporation is invested in supplier diversity or not. But I think what we understand, though, is there's a projection of importance, right? We use corporations use the public perception that they believe and care about diversity. And so that's not necessarily supplier diversity, that's just the perception of diversity. And I think the best the best example of that is Walmart. Walmart's, when you look at their workforce, they've got over 1 million people in their workforce. And the data, I think, shows that more than 50% of their hourly workers are people of color, and 42% of their management people of color. But not that that's encompassing of all diversity, but certainly once you start putting an end to diversity, equity, and inclusion as a practice, consumers may still spend their money with a Walmart brand, not understanding what has happened internally. But if you're an employee of that company, you might feel differently about who you work for. Would you say that might be an area?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have done that type of work as well. But I want to touch on something you said that was so brilliant. In the consumers aren't necessarily aware of supplier diversity. And we wholeheartedly agree with you on that, and knew that in the beginning, in that 2018, 2019 years. And so we really tried to isolate supplier diversity awareness, which everyone I talked to who had been in supplier diversity for 20, 30 years said consumers aren't aware of it. So how do we calibrate the design of our study back then to be able to isolate that, right? Even if it's a 1% lift, that is showing something that can drive strategy to be able to increase and to make that business case for diversity initiatives. But we also knew the need to quantify it at a higher level, in that perception of the brand valuing diversity, which includes lots of different things, right? It includes employee practices. It includes beyond DEI strategy. It includes marketing and inclusiveness at all levels. And so that's the piece that we really also focused on, in addition to tying supplier diversity to the overall perception of diversity. And you're so right. Like, all of us have perceptions about things because of how we're being marketed to and not paying attention to, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the truth. But we can talk about, oh, this is a great brand, and not being able to tell you any reason why we think that. This brand is for me, it understands me, and not be able to tell you why. So our hope was to be able to, if we could isolate it and be able to help inform that strategy and have a different part of the conversation, in addition to like the McKinsey reports who have been around for a long time, talking about the diversity in C-suite and on boards and the impact on the bottom line, kind of coming at it from a different angle, to be able to tell that story for folks who are really putting this information into action, trying in this moment, and hopefully succeeding at creating change, or at least getting back to what baseline of what needs to be for the future of our country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, easy enough. It doesn't sound like a big lift.
Yeah.
Get right on it. Jump right on it. No problem. We got it. But you know what? I think that is, this is a great conversation. I think we can continue this conversation in multiple platforms. I do think Liz always has a great way of wrapping this up, and so I want to give her an opportunity to do that. But I also want to thank you and show you the most amount of appreciation that I can muster right now to say thank you for your time and energy for this topic and for sharing your time and energy with us for 12.5 minutes. Um, this is incredible. I salute you and what you do, and I clearly understand why you're an award-winning firm. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jared. Good to see you, Liz. Talk soon.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump right in because you gave such an eloquent introduction to me wrapping it up. But I think it's fascinating what Stephanie's doing. One, creating a market research for the next generation. Like I think we've thought about that. We've talked about the environment. I think when we talk about polling too, like during the election season, we talked about polling and like some people don't answer their phones and some people don't respond to these kinds of questions. So I think that next generation of market research is really interesting. And as is, rolling out, discovering something, like seeing a need, discovering something, discovering a solution for it, which is like the corporate diversity index, and then saying, this is really powerful and this needs a different messenger than me. It's so hard for founders to do that sometimes. So I think both of those things are really indicative of what a cool business owner Stephanie is and how needed Hootology is in the space.
I totally agree with you. I generally do agree with you on these topics, but I must agree with you on that. That's a great synopsis, and certainly when it comes to data and making better business decisions, leaning on data I think is essential. And then it also something that you mentioned. Sometimes we have to take some of the emotion out of our thought process because we can get more clarity about the truth. And if we want to stand on the truth, then we can do it with data. And even though I do recognize that people can misinterpret data, I think that understanding the value, corporate value as a business initiative, more so a business imperative, I think corporations need to lean in on companies like Hootology that definitely give them the right type of data to make better business decisions, whatever that is, whatever that's going to be. So that's another episode of 12.5 minutes in the books. Thank you, Liz. As always, it has been fantastic. And for our audience, we will see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.